The late afternoon sun painted the busy streets with a warm golden glow. Amelia clutched her worn-out purse, counting the few coins left after paying her rent. She sighed as she passed the flower stand at the corner. The blooms were vibrant: roses, tulips, daisies, all far beyond what she could afford. She paused for a moment, her gaze lingering on a delicate bouquet of white lilies. They reminded her of her late mother, who always said, "Even the smallest kindness can change a life." "Would you like some flowers, miss?" A gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. Amelia turned. The seller was a young man in a simple apron, his dark hair slightly tousled, his smile kind yet reserved. His stand wasn't fancy, just a humble display of fresh flowers. "Oh, I'm sorry. I can't afford them," Amelia said softly, embarrassed. The man studied her for a moment. "They're not for sale, at least not for you," he said quietly. She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" He picked up the bouquet of lilies she had been staring at and held it out to her. "Sometimes flowers are meant to find the right person. Take them. No charge." Amelia hesitated. "I can't accept this. It wouldn't feel right." "Please," he insisted with a soft smile. "It would make me happy." Slowly, Amelia reached out and accepted the bouquet. The sweet scent filled her senses, and for a brief moment, her heart felt lighter. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't even know your name." "Call me Leo," he said simply. "And you?" "Amelia," she replied, smiling shyly. "Well, Amelia," Leo said, leaning slightly on the wooden counter, "I hope those flowers bring you some peace." She nodded, still overwhelmed by the unexpected kind nuns. "They already have." As she walked away, she glanced back. Leo was still there, arranging more flowers, but for some reason, it felt like there was more behind his gentle smile. What Amelia didn't know was that Leo wasn't just a flower seller. Beneath the simple apron was a man with unimaginable wealth, Leonardo King, the secret CEO of one of the largest corporations in the city. And he was searching for something money could never buy: true kindness. But Amelia didn't know that the small smile she gave would provide Leo with the answer he was looking for. But that was only the beginning. Amelia walked home with the bouquet clutched gently in her hands, still feeling the lingering warmth of that moment. The lilies seemed to brighten even the dull, cracked walls of her small apartment. She placed them carefully in an empty glass jar, staring at them for a long while. It wasn't just the flowers. It was the way Leo had looked at her, not with pity, but with genuine kindness. In a city where most people passed her by without a glance, that simple gesture felt like a spark of light. The next morning, Amelia stopped by the flower stand again. She didn't really know why. Perhaps it was curiosity, or maybe gratitude. Leo was there, arranging a fresh delivery of roses. When he noticed her, his expression softened. "Back again so soon?" he asked, teasing lightly. "I just wanted to say thank you properly," Amelia replied. "The flowers, they made my whole evening better." Leo smiled, though there was a quietness in his eyes. "Then they served their purpose." She hesitated before asking, "How long have you been selling flowers?" "A while," he said simply, avoiding the full truth. "It gives me time to think." Amelia tilted her head. "Think about what?" He glanced at her, his gaze briefly distant. "About the kind of people who still notice small things. In a world that moves too fast, kindness is rare." She didn't know what to say to that. Instead, she smiled faintly. "Well, you're kind." Leo chuckled softly. Maybe I'm just looking for it in others. What Amelia couldn't know was that Leo wasn't there because he needed to be. He was testing himself, stepping away from the luxury of his real life. As the CEO of Kingston Enterprises, he was constantly surrounded by people who wanted something from him: money, power, influence. But here, at this small flower stand, people didn't know who he was. And that was exactly why he was there. The next day, a sudden rainstorm hit the city. Amelia ran to the flower stand for cover, drenched and breathless. Leo quickly handed her a small towel. Here, he said gently, you'll catch a cold like this. She laughed softly, brushing wet hair from her face. I guess the city wasn't kind to me today. Leo studied her for a moment, his eyes thoughtful. You still smiled, even when it's raining. Because the rain won't last forever, Amelia said, shrugging lightly. It never does. Something about her simple optimism struck him deeply. Most people he knew complained endlessly, even when their lives were easy. But Amelia, with so little, still found a reason to smile. That evening, after she left, Leo watched her disappear into the crowd. His assistant, who had been discreetly keeping an eye on him from a distance, approached. Sir, the assistant said quietly, the board meeting is tomorrow. Are you sure you want to continue this charade? Leo's gaze didn't leave the path Amelia had taken. I'm not pretending. I'm looking. She's different, and I want to know why. The assistant hesitated. And if she finds out who you really are? Leo turned to him, his expression unreadable. Then I'll know if her kindness was real. Amelia, meanwhile, sat in her small apartment that night, looking at the new single daisy Leo had slipped into her hand before she left. She didn't know why he gave her these little gifts, or why she felt drawn back to that flower stand. She only knew that, for the first time in a long time, someone saw her. And for Leo, that was exactly what he'd been searching for. The next few days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Every morning, Amelia would pass by the flower stand on her way to work. Even if she couldn't stop long, she would always wave, and Leo would greet her with the same calm smile. Sometimes, he handed her a single bloom, a rose, a tulip, or a small sprig of lavender. And other times, he simply wished her a good day. It was a quiet connection, but it felt more meaningful than most words. One chilly afternoon, Amelia lingered a bit longer. Business at the flower stand was slow. People hurried by, avoiding the wind. Why flowers? She asked, watching Leo arrange a fresh bundle. You could have chosen any kind of work. Leo paused, looking at the delicate petals between his fingers. Flowers remind me that beauty doesn't last forever. You have to appreciate it while you can. Amelia tilted her head. That's a poetic answer for a flower seller. He smirked faintly. Maybe I think too much. She laughed softly. Nothing wrong with that. They fell into easy conversation. She told him about her job at the small library across town, about her dreams of becoming a teacher, and about the struggles of keeping up with rent and bills. Leo listened intently, asking quiet questions, never judging. But he never spoke much about himself. When Amelia left that day, Leo watched her disappear into the busy street. There was a softness in her that he hadn't seen in anyone for years. As soon as she was out of sight, a sleek, black car pulled up to the curb. His assistant stepped out, holding a tablet. Sir, the assistant said in a low voice, the shareholders are waiting for your decision on the new luxury housing project. It will replace several low-income blocks in the East District. Leo's expression hardened slightly. And where will those families go? That's not our concern, the assistant replied carefully. It's a profitable deal. Leo looked back at the flower stand. Amelia's words echoed in his mind. The rain doesn't last forever. Postpone the deal, Leo said firmly. I need more time. The assistant blinked. Sir, the board won't like that. I don't care what the board likes, Leo said quietly. Do as I say. Later that night, Leo sat in his penthouse apartment, staring at the city lights. For years, his life had been about numbers, power, and endless transactions. But since meeting Amelia, he'd started to question what all of it meant. She didn't know who he was. She didn't care about his wealth or his name. And for the first time, he wanted someone to see him, not his title. Meanwhile, in her tiny apartment, Amelia placed the small daisy Leo had given her into the jar next to the lilies. She didn't know why she kept accepting these little gifts. Maybe because, for the first time, someone offered her kindness without expecting anything in return. She thought about him more than she expected. He was quiet, almost mysterious, but there was something genuine about his eyes. She wondered what his life was like beyond that little flower stand. The next day, as Amelia approached the stand, she noticed Leo wasn't there. Instead, an older woman was arranging the flowers. Where's Leo? Amelia asked, a strange pang of worry in her chest. The woman smiled. Oh, he said he had to step away for a day, something important to handle. But he'll be back tomorrow. Amelia nodded slowly, but as she walked away, she couldn't help but wonder, what was Leo hiding behind that gentle smile? And why did it feel like there was so much more to his story than he let on? Leo, at that very moment, was in a boardroom, facing down a dozen powerful men who demanded he approve the deal that would destroy hundreds of homes. And for the first time, he wasn't sure which world he truly belonged to anymore. Leo sat at the head of the long mahogany table in the Kingston Enterprises boardroom. The air was thick with tension as the directors exchanged sharp looks and hushed whispers. A massive digital screen displayed numbers, charts, and projections for the proposed luxury housing project, a deal worth millions. Mr. King, one of the senior board members said pointedly, "We've delayed this decision long enough. Investors are eager. If we don't move forward, we risk losing significant profit margins." Leo leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. For years, he would have agreed without hesitation. But now, he thought of Amelia, of the gentle strength in her eyes, of the families she had mentioned who struggled just to keep their homes. And what happens to the families currently living in those blocks? He asked calmly. The board member blinked, surprised. They'll be relocated. It's standard procedure. Relocated where? Leo pressed. Into overcrowded shelters? Onto the streets? A murmur rippled through the room. Another executive cleared his throat. With respect, sir, we can't let sentiment interfere with business. This is about the company's growth. Leo's jaw tightened. The company's growth. For so long, that phrase had driven every decision he made. But now, it felt hollow. He stood slowly, his voice steady but firm. This meeting is over. The project is on hold indefinitely. The room erupted into protest. You can't just... I can, Leo interrupted sharply, because I built this company, and I'm telling you now, We will not build profit on the ruins of people's lives. The board fell silent, stunned by the uncharacteristic defiance in his tone. Leo walked out, leaving them speechless. Later that evening, he returned to the flower stand. The city was quiet after a light rain, the streets shimmering under the glow of streetlights. Amelia was already there, holding a single rose she'd picked from the display. "You came back," she said softly, a hint of relief in her voice. "Of course," Leo replied with a faint smile. "I said I'd be here." She studied him for a moment. "You look tired. Is everything okay?" Leo hesitated. He couldn't tell her about the heated boardroom or the $1 million deal he'd just halted. So instead, he said gently, "Just a long day, but seeing you makes it better." Amelia's cheeks flushed slightly. She tried to change the subject. "Did you always love flowers?" Leo smiled faintly. "Not always, but they remind me that even the smallest things can bring someone happiness." Amelia nodded, holding the rose close. "They do." As Amelia left that evening, Leo watched her again, the weight of his choices heavy on his shoulders. He was beginning to realize that kindness, real kindness, required sacrifice. He turned back to the flower stand, thinking of the deal he'd canceled and the storm it would stir among his board. For the first time in years, he wasn't sure what the cost of his decisions would be. Meanwhile, Amelia walked home with the rose in her hand, wondering why Leo felt so different from anyone she had ever met. There was a quiet sadness in his eyes that didn't match the life of a simple flower seller. She thought about asking him more, but something in her heart told her that his story was far more complicated than he let on. That night, Leo sat alone in his penthouse, staring at the city lights. The phone rang, his assistant again, warning him about the backlash from the board. "Let them be angry," Leo said coldly. "This time, we're doing the right thing." But deep down, he knew that by choosing the right path, he had started a battle he couldn't easily win, and soon Amelia would be caught in the middle of it. The next morning, Amelia stopped by the flower stand earlier than usual. The air was cool, and the city streets were just beginning to stir with life. Leo was already there, quietly arranging bouquets. She smiled softly. "You're always here before anyone else." Leo glanced up, returning her smile. "Flowers don't wait for anyone. They need care the moment the day begins." Amelia tilted her head. "You talk about flowers like they're alive." "They are," he said gently. "Even if their lives are brief, they still make the world brighter. Isn't that worth something?" Amelia didn't know why, but his words made her chest tighten in a strange way. "It is," she agreed. They fell into a comfortable silence as she picked up a small bunch of daisies. "Would you like those?" Leo asked. Amelia hesitated. "I can't keep taking them for free." Leo chuckled lightly. "Then think of it this way. You're not taking. You're reminding me why I started doing this." She accepted the daisies with a grateful smile. "You're too kind, Leo." After she left, Leo's assistant approached discreetly, glancing around to make sure no one overheard. "Sir," the assistant said, "the board is furious about your decision yesterday. They're calling for an emergency meeting. Some are even considering a vote to challenge your leadership." Leo's expression remained calm, but his voice was firm. "Let them try. If they want to replace me, they'll have to explain why they're willing to destroy families for profit." The assistant hesitated. And what about her? Amelia, are you going to tell her who you really are? Leo stared at the path Amelia had just taken. Not yet. If she knew, it might change everything. I need to know if her kindness is real, even when she thinks I have nothing to give in return. Meanwhile, Amelia walked through the streets, the daisies in her hands. She didn't know why she kept coming back to the flower stand, but something about Leo felt different. He wasn't like the others who brushed past her in the city, too caught up in their own lives. That evening, at the small library where she worked, Amelia mentioned him to her friend Nora. He's just gentle, Amelia said softly. He listens, and it doesn't feel forced. But there's something he doesn't say. I can feel it. Nora raised an eyebrow. You think he's hiding something? Amelia shrugged. Maybe, but even if he is, he's still kind. Later that night, Leo stood on the balcony of his penthouse, looking out over the city. His phone buzzed again. This time, a message from one of the directors. We're moving forward without you if you don't reconsider. Think carefully before you burn everything you've built. Leo exhaled slowly. For the first time in years, he didn't care about the empire he'd created. He cared about the people affected by his decisions, and about one woman who still saw kindness in a stranger. He sent a simple reply. Do what you must. I'm not changing my mind. As he turned away from the glowing skyline, his thoughts returned to Amelia's smile. For her, he wanted to be someone better. But he also knew the storm he was choosing to face would inevitably reach her life, whether he wanted it or not. And soon, she would have to learn the truth. The following day, Amelia decided to do something she'd never done before. Bring Leo something in return. She woke up early, baked a small batch of simple cookies with the last of her flour, and wrapped them carefully in a piece of parchment paper. It wasn't much, but it felt right to give back a piece of the kindness she had received. When she arrived at the flower stand, Leo was already there, arranging a bouquet of soft pink roses. His face lit up the moment he saw her. Good morning, Amelia, he said warmly. You're early today. I wanted to thank you, she replied, holding out the small bundle of cookies. I know it's not much, but I made these for you. Leo blinked in surprise, then slowly took the package from her hands. For a moment, his usual composure faltered, replaced by something softer, more vulnerable. No one's done something like this for me in a long time, he admitted quietly. Thank you. Amelia smiled, feeling a strange flutter in her chest. It's the least I can do. You've given me more than you realize. Leo looked at her, his gaze lingering. Sometimes, it's the smallest gestures that mean the most. Meanwhile, across the city, chaos was brewing in the Kingston Enterprises boardroom. The directors gathered in a heated discussion, their voices sharp. He's sabotaging the company, one of them spat, halting the housing project, diverting funds to community programs. This is reckless. Another director leaned forward. We can force a vote to remove him. He's becoming a liability. The assistant listened silently in the corner, then sent a discreet message to Leo. They're planning to vote against you. Be careful. Later that afternoon, Leo left the flower stand early. Amelia watched him pack up, concerned. Is everything all right? She asked. Leo paused, looking torn. There are things I need to deal with. But I'll be back." Amelia wanted to ask more, but the look in his eyes stopped her. Instead, she simply nodded. "I'll see you tomorrow then." He gave her a faint smile. Tomorrow. Leo arrived at the corporate tower just as the emergency board meeting began. As he stepped into the room, every eye turned toward him. "You're late," one of the directors snapped. Leo didn't sit. He stood tall, hands in his pockets, his voice calm but commanding. "Let's not waste time. I know why you're all here. You want me out because I chose people over profit." An older director scoffed. "This isn't a charity, Leo. You're forgetting what built this company." Leo's eyes hardened. "What built this company was trust, and I refuse to destroy lives for another empty tower of glass and steel." The room erupted in protest, but Leo didn't flinch. "If you think you can lead better, go ahead, but I won't sign those deals." After the meeting, Leo returned to his penthouse, exhausted. His assistant was waiting with a worried look. "They're serious," the assistant said. "If you keep pushing them, they'll remove you." Leo walked to the window, gazing out at the city lights. Let them. I'd rather lose the company than lose myself. But deep down, he wondered what would happen to Amelia if his world collapsed. She didn't know who he really was. And soon, his two lives, the CEO and the humble flower seller, would collide. And when that happened, would she still see him the same way? The next morning, Amelia arrived at the flower stand as usual, but Leo wasn't there. Instead, the older woman who sometimes helped him was arranging the flowers. Leo had something important to take care of, she explained when she noticed Amelia's puzzled look. "He'll be back soon." Amelia nodded, feeling an unexpected pang of disappointment. She placed a hand gently on one of the bouquets, staring at the vibrant colors. "Why do I feel this way?" she wondered. "He was just a kind stranger who sold flowers, wasn't he?" She picked up a single tulip, left a few coins on the counter, and walked to work with her thoughts heavy. Meanwhile, across town, Leo was deep in another battle with the board of Kingston Enterprises. The directors sat in a semicircle, their faces stony and unyielding. "We're calling a formal vote," one of them said coldly. "You've defied us one time too many. Halting the housing project, diverting company funds to these so-called community initiatives. You're jeopardizing the future of this corporation." Leo met their glares with calm defiance. "If the future you want is built on greed, then it's not a future worth having." Another director slammed a file onto the table. "Enough idealism. You're either with the board or you're done here." Leo leaned forward, his voice like ice. "Do what you think you must. But if you try to replace me, you'll have to face the public backlash. They know the truth now. They know what we've saved." The room fell silent. The directors exchanged uneasy looks. They couldn't afford the scandal, not after the recent media praise for the community centers. For now, Leo had bought himself more time. But he knew the reprieve wouldn't last forever. Later that evening, after hours of meetings and silent threats, Leo returned to the flower stand. The moment he saw Amelia waiting nearby, something in his tense expression softened. "You came back," she said quietly, relief in her eyes. "I said I would," he replied, with a faint smile, but Amelia could sense the heaviness behind his smile. "Are you all right? You look tired." Leo hesitated, then shook his head lightly. just a long day. She wanted to ask more, but something told her he wasn't ready to share. Instead, she offered him the tulip she'd bought that morning. Then maybe this will make your day a little better. Leo stared at the simple flower in her hand, taken aback. He slowly accepted it, his voice low. "You're the first person who's ever given me flowers." Amelia smiled softly. "Maybe you needed one." As the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Leo walked her halfway home. They talked about small things, books, favorite places in the city, childhood dreams, but neither mentioned the weight they were both carrying inside. When they reached her street, Amelia paused. "Leo, whoever you really are, I hope you find peace." Leo blinked. "Whoever you really are." Did she sense the truth? Before he could respond, she smiled and walked inside, leaving him standing in the soft glow of the street lamp. That night, in his penthouse, Leo held the tulip Amelia had given him. It was such a small gesture, yet it felt heavier than any deal he'd ever made. His assistant's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, the board is regrouping. They'll try again soon. What's your next move?" Leo gazed out at the city lights. "I'm done playing their game. If they want a war, I'll fight it my way." But deep down, he knew the longer he stayed in this fight, the harder it would be to keep Amelia from the storm that was coming. And soon, she would have no choice but to see the man behind the flower stand. The next few days passed quietly, but Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that something was stirring beneath the surface. She still visited the flower stand every morning, and Leo was always there, greeting her with a calm smile. Yet there was a heaviness in his eyes she hadn't noticed before. One afternoon, Amelia brought him a small book she had found in the library, a collection of poems about kindness. "I thought you might like this," she said shyly. "You always say flowers remind you of small moments, and this book, it's kind of like that." Leo took the book gently, his fingers brushing against hers for the briefest moment. "Thank you," he said softly. "I'll treasure it." She smiled, but in her heart, questions lingered. Who is he really? Why does he seem like someone who carries the weight of the world on his shoulders? Meanwhile, inside the sleek conference room of Kingston Enterprises, the board was plotting again. "This can't go on," one director hissed. "He's turning this company into a charity. We need a replacement, someone who understands profit." Another nodded grimly. "The media attention is protecting him for now, but it won't last. We'll wait for the right moment to strike." Outside the boardroom, Leo's assistant overheard the whispers and quickly sent a warning text. "They're moving against you. Be ready." That evening, Leo didn't return straight to his penthouse. Instead, he wandered through the quieter streets, stopping by the small park near Amelia's neighborhood. As if by fate, he saw her sitting on a bench, reading under the soft glow of a streetlight. She looked up, surprised, but happy. "Leo, I didn't expect to see you here." "I needed some air," he replied, sitting beside her. "Long day again?" She nodded sympathetically. "You always look like you're carrying something heavy. I wish you'd tell me what it is." Leo gazed at her, torn between the truth and the life he had built as just a flower seller. "Some things are complicated," he said quietly. Amelia gave a small, reassuring smile. "Well, even if you don't tell me, I'm still here. Sometimes it's enough just to know someone cares." Her words hit him harder than he expected. For years, People around him cared only about his power, his money, his influence. But Amelia's kindness had no agenda. Later that night, after walking her home, Leo returned to his penthouse. He opened the poetry book she had given him and read a simple line that stayed with him. True kindness asks for nothing but gives everything. He set the book down and looked out at the city. The board was tightening its grip, ready to strike. He could fight them, but he knew the battle would spill into every part of his life, including Amelia's. The next morning, at the flower stand, Leo handed Amelia a single white rose. "For you," he said softly. She smiled and accepted it, but before she could speak, Leo added, "Amelia, there's something I need to tell you soon. Something important." Her heart skipped. "What is it?" He hesitated, his eyes clouded. "Not today, but soon. You deserve to know the truth." Amelia didn't press. Instead, she nodded gently. "Whenever you're ready." As she walked away, Leo watched her disappear into the crowd, knowing the day was coming when the mask would fall. And when it did, would she still look at him with the same kindness? The next few days moved slower than usual. Amelia felt the weight of Leo's words echoing in her mind. You deserve to know the truth. What truth? She couldn't help but replay the moment, wondering what he was hiding. She still visited the flower stand every morning. Leo greeted her, as always, his smile warm but tinged with something unspoken. He would give her a flower, ask about her day, and listen quietly, but the air between them felt heavier now, filled with quiet anticipation. Amelia tried to distract herself with work at the library, but her thoughts always drifted back to him. She told her friend, Nora, about it one afternoon while shelving books. "He said he has something important to tell me," Amelia confessed. Nora raised an eyebrow. "What if he's married? Or has some secret past?" Amelia shook her head. "It doesn't feel like that. It feels bigger, like he's someone else entirely." "Someone else?" Nora laughed lightly. "Amelia, he's just a flower seller." But Amelia wasn't so sure. Meanwhile, Leo was facing a war behind closed doors. In the Kingston Enterprises boardroom, the directors were finalizing their plan to oust him. "This is the vote," one director said coldly. "We've gathered enough signatures. By next week, Leo King will no longer be CEO." They smiled thinly, thinking they had finally regained control. But Leo already knew. His assistant had warned him. And instead of preparing for defeat, Leo was preparing his own countermove, a plan that would not only save the company, but also reveal the truth to the world. That evening, Leo didn't go straight home. Instead, he found himself at the small park near Amelia's neighborhood again. She was there, sitting on the same bench, lost in a book. When she noticed him, her face lit up. "Leo, you keep surprising me." "Maybe I just like this place," he replied, sitting beside her. They sat in silence for a moment, before Amelia spoke softly. "Leo, whatever it is you're carrying, you don't have to face it alone. You can trust me." Her words made his chest tighten. For so long, he had trusted no one. But looking at Amelia, he wanted to believe she would see him, not the title, not the wealth, just him. "I want to tell you," Leo said quietly, "but I'm afraid it might change the way you see me." Amelia closed her book and met his gaze. "The person I see is kind. That won't change." Leo stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Tomorrow. Meet me here tomorrow evening, and I'll tell you everything. After walking her home, Leo returned to his penthouse and stood on the balcony, staring at the sprawling city. Tomorrow would change everything. Amelia would know the truth, that he wasn't just Leo, the quiet flower seller, but Leonardo King, the man at the center of the very corporate empire she likely despised. Would she feel betrayed? Would she turn away? He didn't know. But he knew he couldn't keep lying to her. The next morning, at the flower stand, Amelia arrived with a nervous smile. "So, tomorrow?" she asked softly. "Yes," Leo replied, his eyes holding hers. "Tomorrow, you'll know who I really am." Amelia nodded, unsure whether to feel anxious or hopeful. She didn't know that in less than 24 hours, the truth would shatter the simple world they had built together and force both of them to choose what really mattered. The next evening arrived with a cool breeze and the soft glow of city lights. Amelia sat on the familiar park bench, clutching her coat tightly around her shoulders. She couldn't deny the nervous flutter in her chest. Whatever Leo was about to reveal felt big, life-changing even. Minutes later, he appeared, dressed not in his usual simple apron, but in a tailored, dark coat. His presence felt different, more composed, more deliberate. "You came," Leo said softly, taking a seat beside her. "I said I would," Amelia replied. "You told me you had something to share?" Leo took a deep breath, his hands clasped loosely in front of him. "Amelia, what I'm about to tell you might change the way you see me, but I can't keep hiding it. You deserve the truth." Her eyes widened slightly, but she nodded, silent encouragement for him to continue. "I'm not just a flower seller," he began slowly. "My name is Leonardo King. I'm the CEO of Kingston Enterprises." Amelia froze. The name sounded familiar, too familiar. Kingston Enterprises was everywhere in the city, a name tied to both luxury and controversy. "You're the CEO?" she whispered. "Yes," he said, his voice steady but low. "I built an empire, Amelia. But in doing so, I lost touch with the very people my company affected. I stepped away to remember what kindness looked like when it wasn't bought or expected. That's why I came to the flower stand. That's why I met you." Amelia's mind raced. "So, all this time, you were testing me?" "No," Leo said quickly, his eyes earnest. "Not you, myself. I needed to see if there was still real kindness in this world, something pure that wasn't tied to my name or money. And you reminded me it exists." She turned away for a moment, processing his words. She thought of every flower he'd given her, every quiet smile, every gentle conversation. "Why didn't you just tell me from the start?" she asked softly. "Because if I had, I would never know if you cared about me." "Or the title," Leo replied. "I needed to know if someone could see the man, not the CEO." Amelia looked at him, her expression torn between shock and something softer. "You're still Leo to me," she whispered, "but I don't know how to feel about this." "I understand," he said quietly. "Take your time. I didn't tell you this to confuse you. I told you because you deserve honesty." They sat in silence for a while, the distant hum of the city filling the space between them. Finally, Amelia stood. "I need to think," she said, her voice trembling slightly. It's a lot." Leo rose as well, his expression unreadable, but his eyes full of quiet hope. "I'll be here, Amelia, whatever you decide." That night, Amelia lay awake in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling. She thought of Leo's kindness, of the man who gave her flowers without expecting anything, and of the powerful CEO whose choices affected thousands of lives. Was he really both? And if so, which one was the real Leo? Meanwhile, in his penthouse, Leo looked out over the city with a heavy heart. He'd finally told her the truth. Now, all he could do was wait and hope she wouldn't walk away. The next morning felt heavier than usual for Amelia. She carried the weight of the previous night like a stone in her chest. As she walked to work, she passed the flower stand but didn't stop. The sight of the blooms felt different now. They weren't just simple gifts anymore. They were tied to a man whose life was far more complex than she had imagined. At the library, Nora noticed her distracted state. "You're quiet today," Nora said, shelving books. "Did something happen?" Amelia hesitated, unsure how much to share. "Leo isn't who I thought he was." Nora tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "He's not just a flower seller," Amelia whispered. "He's Leonardo King, the CEO of Kingston Enterprises." Nora's eyes widened. "Wait, the Leonardo King? The one in all the business magazines?" Amelia nodded slowly. "Yes, he's been living this double life, I guess. He said he wanted to see genuine kindness without his name attached to it." Nora paused, processing. "So, he lied to you?" Amelia shook her head. "He didn't really lie. He just didn't tell me the whole truth. But now, I don't know how to feel. Can I still trust him?" Meanwhile, Leo stood at the flower stand, arranging bouquets with deliberate care. He noticed Amelia didn't come that morning. For the first time since they met, the absence felt sharp. His assistant arrived quietly, holding a tablet. "Sir, the board has scheduled another emergency vote. They're determined to remove you this time." Leo didn't look up. "Let them. I'm not backing down." The assistant hesitated. "And Amelia? Did you tell her?" "Yes," Leo said softly. "I told her everything. Now it's her choice." That evening, Amelia finally decided to see him again. She found Leo still at the stand, the sunset casting long shadows on the street. He looked up, relief flickering in his eyes. "You came," he said gently. "I needed answers," Amelia replied, her voice quiet but steady. Leo nodded. "Ask me anything." She took a deep breath. "Why now? Why tell me the truth now?" "Because I couldn't keep pretending with you," he said simply. "You're the first person in years who's been kind to me without wanting something in return. I didn't want to lose that by hiding who I am." Amelia studied him for a moment. "And what do you want from me now?" Leo's gaze softened. "Nothing. Just to know if you can still see me as the same person you met, the man, not the CEO." Amelia looked down at the flowers on the stand. They were still the same lilies, daisies, and roses she had always seen. And Leo was still the same man who had given her a free bouquet when she couldn't afford one. "I don't know if I fully understand your world," she admitted, "but I do know who you were to me before I knew your name. And that hasn't changed." A quiet relief washed over Leo's face. "Thank you," he said softly. But before the moment could settle, Leo's phone buzzed with an urgent call. He answered, his expression darkening instantly. "What?" he said sharply. "They're really doing it? Fine, I'll handle it." He ended the call and turned to Amelia, his eyes suddenly serious. "The board is moving against me. I have to go." "Go where?" she asked, concerned. "To save everything we've been building," he replied. "And when I come back, I'll explain everything else." As he walked away into the growing darkness, Amelia felt a chill. She didn't fully understand the battle he was about to face, but somehow she knew it would decide not only his future, but theirs. Leo left the flower stand behind that evening and headed straight for Kingston Enterprises' towering headquarters. The sleek glass building reflected the fading sunlight, casting long shadows that felt as heavy as the moment he was about to face. Inside the boardroom, the directors were already gathered. Their expressions were cold, calculating. A senior member, Mr. Hayward, stood and spoke with icy authority. Leo, you've undermined this board for the last time. Your personal crusade for kindness has cost us millions. We're voting tonight to remove you as CEO. Leo's gaze swept across the table, calm but unyielding. You think this is just about money, but it's more than that. The communities we've helped, the lives we've saved, are worth more than another luxury project. Another director scoffed. You've become weak. Compassion has no place in business. Leo stepped closer, his voice steady but cutting. Then maybe you've forgotten why this company was built. It wasn't just to make a profit. It was to build trust. If you take me down, you'll take all of that with you. Hayward smirked. We'll survive without you. Leo set a folder on the table. No, you won't. Because I've made every community center, every outreach program, legally untouchable. Remove me if you want. But the public will know exactly who's responsible if you dismantle it all. And trust me, they won't forgive you. The room fell into tense silence. They knew he wasn't bluffing. After the meeting, Leo stepped out onto the rooftop of the building, the city stretching endlessly before him. His assistant joined him quietly. They backed down for now, the assistant said, but they won't stop. Leo sighed, his shoulders heavy with the weight of the fight. Let them try. I'll keep pushing back. But there's something more important I need to take care of now. The girl the assistant asked carefully. Leo gave a faint smile. Amelia deserves to know where I stand. And if she chooses to walk away, I'll accept it. But she has to know the whole truth. Meanwhile, Amelia sat in her small apartment, staring at the bouquet Leo had given her days ago. The petals were starting to wilt, but she couldn't bring herself to throw them away. Nora called her, curiosity in her voice. So, have you decided what you're going to do about Leo? Amelia hesitated. I don't know. He's not who I thought, but he's also exactly who he was when we met. Kind, thoughtful. I just don't know if I can step into his world. It feels too big for me. Maybe he doesn't want you to step into his world, Nora said gently. Maybe he just wants you to see him. Amelia stared at the fading flowers, her heart conflicted. The next day, Leo returned to the flower stand, looking more tired than ever, but also strangely peaceful. Amelia was already there, waiting. You came back, she said softly. I told you I would, Leo replied. He handed her a single white lily, fresh and perfect. Did you fix what you needed to? She asked. For now, he said with a small smile. But Amelia, there's more I need to tell you. About the company, about what I've been fighting for, and why I need you to understand. Amelia looked into his eyes and saw the same quiet sincerity she had seen from the very beginning. I'm listening, she said. Leo took a deep breath. I'm not just trying to be a better man for the company. I'm trying to be a better man for you, because you're the first person who made me remember what really matters. For a long moment, Amelia couldn't speak. The city moved around them, cars honking, people rushing, but the world felt still. Was this the start of something new, or the edge of something she wasn't ready to step into? Amelia stood silently, her fingers brushing over the delicate petals of the white lily Leo had given her. His words hung in the air like a fragile thread. "I'm trying to be a better man for you." For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. She had expected an explanation about his company or his battles with the board, but not this, not something so personal. "Leo," she finally whispered, "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything right now," he replied softly. "I just needed you to know that you've changed me. The choices I'm making now, they're because you reminded me there's still good worth fighting for." Amelia met his gaze. His eyes were tired, but they were clear, honest. "I believe you," she said quietly, "but I'm still trying to understand how someone like you ended up selling flowers on a street corner." Leo smiled faintly. "Because I needed to see life without walls, without titles. I needed to know if people could be kind without knowing who I was. And then you came along, and you were." Her heart tightened. All this time, she had thought he was the one giving kindness. She never realized she had been giving it back in ways she didn't even see. Later that day, Leo was called back into the corporate tower for yet another confrontation. This time, the directors had gathered signatures for an official motion. "This is your final warning," Hayward announced. "You either agree to our terms or we proceed to vote you out." Leo didn't flinch. "And what are your terms?" "End the community programs. Restart the luxury housing project. Stop wasting company resources on charity," Hayward said flatly. Leo's jaw tightened. "Then vote me out. But understand this. If you do, I'll release every document showing how you've exploited this company for your own gain. The public will know the truth." The room erupted into murmurs. They knew Leo had the power to ruin them if pushed too far. "You wouldn't dare," one director sneered. Leo leaned forward. "Try me." There was silence. No one called his bluff. For now, the programs and the families were safe. After the meeting, Leo went straight to the flower stand. Amelia was still there, waiting, her expression uncertain. "You look tired," she said softly. "I am," Leo admitted, "but I'm also more sure than ever about what I want." Amelia tilted her head slightly. "And what is that?" "You," he said simply. "Not because you're part of some game. Not because I'm lonely, but because you see me in a way no one else does. And I want to keep being the man you believe I can be." Amelia felt her heart race. She wanted to trust him. This man who was both a stranger and someone she somehow knew deeply. That evening, she walked with him through the park. The air was cool, filled with the scent of blooming flowers. "Leo, if I step into your world, it won't be easy," Amelia said quietly. "I'm just me. I'm not used to that kind of life." "You don't have to change for it," Leo said gently. "You don't have to be anyone but yourself. That's the whole point." She looked at him, searching his eyes for any sign of dishonesty. But all she saw was the same quiet sincerity he had shown from the very beginning. When he walked her home that night, Amelia paused at her door. "I don't know what the future looks like," she admitted softly. "Neither do I," Leo replied. "But I know I want you in it." And for the first time since learning who he really was, Amelia felt a small, cautious hope begin to bloom. The days that followed were quieter, but the tension beneath the surface hadn't vanished. Amelia continued her routine at the library. Yet each evening, she found herself walking past the flower stand, drawn back to Leo, despite the weight of everything she had learned. Leo, for his part, balanced two worlds with increasing difficulty. By day, he faced relentless boardroom battles. By evening, he found solace in the simple moments they shared. Every time he handed her a flower, it reminded him why he was fighting so hard. One morning, Amelia brought him a small lunch she had packed herself. "You always look like you forget to eat," she said softly, setting the wrapped meal on the counter. Leo smiled, touched. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," Amelia replied. "You give so much without asking for anything back. I thought maybe someone should do the same for you." Leo's eyes softened. "You have no idea how much that means to me." They stood there for a moment, the noise of the city fading into the background. It was a simple exchange, yet it carried more weight than any grand gesture. But back at Kingston Enterprises, the storm was far from over. The board was furious that their attempts to control Leo had failed. Hayward paced the conference room, his voice sharp. "He's making us look weak. The public loves him now. Every article praises his reform and new vision. We can't touch him without backlash." Another director spoke up. "So we wait. Let him dig his own grave. Eventually, the public will forget, or will find another scandal to bury him." Their plotting continued in hushed tones, unaware that Leo's assistant was quietly recording their words. That evening, Leo met Amelia at the park again. They sat on the same bench, surrounded by the soft rustle of leaves. "I want to tell you what's happening," Leo said, "about the board, about what they're trying to do." Amelia listened intently as he explained the battles he was facing, the projects he'd halted, the programs he'd saved, and the powerful people who wanted him gone. When he finished, she took a deep breath. "It sounds like you're carrying this alone." Leo shook his head. "Not anymore. You remind me why it's worth it." Amelia looked down at her hands. "But if they force you out, what happens then?" "I'll still fight," he said simply. "With or without the title, I won't let them undo what we've built." Her heart tightened at the quiet conviction in his voice. He wasn't just a man of power. He was someone willing to sacrifice it for what mattered. As they walked back toward her apartment, Amelia stopped suddenly. "Leo, I don't know if I'm ready for the world you come from. It's big, complicated, and I'm not." Leo turned to her, his eyes gentle. "I'm not asking you to step into my world. I'm asking you to stay in ours. The one we've built here, between us. That's the only part that matters." Amelia felt a warmth spread through her chest. Maybe it really was that simple. Later that night, Leo received the recording his assistant had made of the board's secret plotting. As he listened, a plan began to form, one that would expose the corruption once and for all. But he knew taking this step would change everything, for him and for Amelia. Because once the truth came out, there would be no going back. Leo sat in his penthouse late into the night, the city lights casting reflections on the floor-to-ceiling windows. The recording from his assistant played again on his laptop. Hayward and the other directors scheming in cold, calculated voices. Every word was another knife in the back of the very people the company claimed to help. He knew releasing this would destroy them, but it would also trigger a war that couldn't be undone. The board would retaliate with everything they had, and Amelia, she would inevitably be pulled into the chaos. Leo closed the laptop with a quiet sigh. If I stay silent, they win. But if I act, it will cost me everything. The next morning, Amelia visited the flower stand as usual. Leo was already there, though his eyes looked more tired than she'd ever seen. "You didn't sleep," she said gently. Leo gave a faint smile. "Not much. There's something I need to decide, and it's not easy." Amelia studied him for a moment. "Then whatever it is, you'll decide with your heart. That's what you've always done." Her simple words gave him strength. He handed her a fresh bouquet of lilies. "These are for you." A reminder that even in hard times, beauty still exists. She accepted them with a small smile. "Thank you, Leo." Later that day, Leo walked into Kingston Enterprises with a different kind of resolve. The board was already waiting for him, ready to deliver their final blow. "You're done," Hayward said coldly the moment Leo stepped into the boardroom. "We have the votes. By the end of today, you'll be removed." Leo didn't flinch. Instead, he placed a USB drive on the table. "Before you do that, you might want to hear what I have. A recording of every word you said about exploiting this company for your own gain. If I'm out, it all goes public." The directors froze. "You wouldn't dare," one of them hissed. Leo's eyes were sharp. "Try me." Hayward's face paled. The board exchanged frantic looks. They knew Leo held the upper hand now. "You can keep your title," Hayward finally spat, "but you won't win forever." Leo stood tall. "I don't need to win forever. Just long enough to make sure the people you're hurting are safe." That evening, Leo returned to the flower stand. Amelia was waiting, sensing something had shifted. "You look different," she said quietly. "Did you make your decision?" Leo nodded. "I did. I chose to fight back, and I won, at least for now. The board won't be able to touch the programs or the communities anymore." Amelia's eyes softened. "I knew you would do the right thing." "But it's not over," Leo admitted. "There will always be another battle. I can't promise you a quiet life, Amelia. Not if you're with me." She hesitated, then stepped closer. "I never asked for quiet. I just wanted honesty, and you've given me that." For a moment, they simply stood there, the city moving around them. "Leo," Amelia said softly, "you may be a CEO, but you're also the man who gave a stranger flowers just to see her smile. That's the man I believe in." Leo felt something inside him ease, a weight he'd carried for years, finally lifting. "Then stay," he said quietly. "Stay, and let's see what we can build together." Amelia smiled, a gentle but certain smile. "I'm not going anywhere." But as they stood there, neither of them noticed the figure watching from across the street, one of the board members, silently making a call. The fight wasn't over. And soon, Leo and Amelia would face a challenge neither of them could have predicted. The next morning, the city felt unusually still. Amelia woke early, her mind buzzing with thoughts of Leo. She replayed the quiet moment they'd shared the night before, the way he'd looked at her, relieved yet wary, like a man standing on the edge of something bigger than himself. At the flower stand, Leo wasn't there. Instead, the older woman greeted Amelia with a faint smile. "Leo had to step away again," she explained. "Something urgent came up." Amelia nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. She took a single daisy, leaving a small coin on the counter, and continued to work. But somewhere deep inside, she knew this absence felt different. Meanwhile, Leo was locked in yet another confrontation with the board. Hayward sat smugly at the head of the table, a thin smile curling his lips. "You might have won the last round," Hayward said, "but the game isn't over. You can't protect those programs forever." Leo leaned forward, his voice calm but cutting. "You don't understand. This isn't just a company anymore. It's people. And if you try to destroy what we've built, I'll take every last one of your secrets and put them in the light." Hayward's smile faded. "You're making powerful enemies." Leo didn't flinch. "Then let them come. I'm done living in fear of greed." The board fell silent. They knew Leo wasn't bluffing. He'd backed them into a corner they couldn't easily escape. After the meeting, Leo sat in his office, staring at Amelia's contacts saved on his phone. He wanted to call her, to tell her that the fight was far from over, but he also didn't want to drag her further into the darkness of his world. His assistant entered quietly. "Sir, we've intercepted some communications. Hayward's hired outside help. He's planning a smear campaign to ruin your name publicly." Leo exhaled slowly. "Of course he is. And Amelia? She's not involved," the assistant said. "Yet. But they might use her if they find out she matters to you." Leo's hands tightened into fists. "Then keep her out of this. She's the one thing in my life that's real." That evening, Leo appeared at the park bench where Amelia sometimes sat after work. She was there, reading quietly. When she saw him, she smiled, but it quickly faded when she noticed the tension in his face. "Leo, what's wrong?" she asked gently. He sat beside her, silent for a moment before speaking. "Things are getting harder. The board won't stop until they destroy me. And now, I'm afraid they'll use anyone close to me as leverage." Amelia's brow furrowed. "You mean me?" "Yes," he admitted. "I never wanted you to be dragged into this, Amelia, but you've become important to me, and that makes you a target." She closed her book slowly. "Leo, I chose to trust you knowing your world was complicated. I'm not going to walk away just because it's difficult." His eyes softened with both relief and worry. "You don't know what they're capable of." Amelia took his hand gently. "Then we'll face it together." For the first time, Leo allowed himself to feel a flicker of peace, but deep down, he knew Hayward wasn't finished. The smear campaign was already in motion, and soon lies would spread faster than truth. And when Amelia saw the headlines, would she still believe in him? 2 days later, the storm arrived exactly as Leo had feared. Early in the morning, Amelia stopped by a newsstand on her way to work. Her eyes caught the headline splashed across every paper. "Scandal at Kingston Enterprises. CEO Leonardo King accused of fraud and exploiting communities." She froze, scanning the article with trembling hands. It detailed accusations of embezzling funds, manipulating public trust with fake outreach programs, and even hinted at secret personal relationships being used to clean his image. A blurred photo accompanied the piece. Leo at the flower stand, handing her a bouquet. Her heart dropped. "They're dragging me into this," she realized. Meanwhile, at Kingston Enterprises, chaos erupted. The smear campaign Hayward had orchestrated was everywhere. News sites, social media, and television reports, all echoing the same damning narrative. In his office, Leo stared at the screens displaying the headlines. His assistant spoke quickly, panic in his voice. Sir, the board leaked everything. They're framing you for corruption, and they're using Amelia, suggesting she was part of your plan to distract the public. Leo's jaw tightened. They want to ruin her to get to me. What should we do? The assistant asked. Leo stood, his expression unreadable, but his eyes cold with determination. We fight back, and this time, we reveal everything, every document, every recording of their schemes. No more waiting. That evening, Amelia sat in her small apartment. The bouquet Leo had given her days ago, now wilting in the vase. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from Nora. Amelia, are you seeing this? They're saying Leo used you for PR. Amelia didn't reply. She didn't want to believe the articles, but the doubts clawed at her. Did he really tell me the full truth? Or was I just part of his plan? A knock at her door startled her. When she opened it, Leo was there, still in his dark coat, looking more tired than she had ever seen him. Amelia, he said quietly. She stepped back slightly. Leo, what is happening? They're saying terrible things about you. And me. It's all lies, he said firmly. Hayward and the board are desperate. They'll destroy anyone to get what they want. Please, you have to believe me. Amelia searched his face, seeing the same sincerity in his eyes that had always been there. But the headlines replayed in her mind. I want to believe you, she whispered. But it's hard when the whole world is saying otherwise. Leo stepped closer, his voice low but steady. Then let me prove it. Tomorrow, I'm going public. I'll expose everything, every piece of evidence of their corruption, and when I do, you'll know I never lied to you. The next day, Leo called a press conference. Cameras filled the room, reporters buzzing with anticipation. The board members watched from the sidelines, certain this would be his downfall. But Leo stepped up to the podium, calm and composed, holding a flash drive. These are the recordings, the emails, the contracts, all the proof of what this board has done to exploit the people of this city, he announced. And I won't let them hide behind my name anymore. Gasps filled the room as the evidence played on the big screen. Hayward's voice echoed in front of the reporters, admitting to the smear campaign, mocking the communities they were supposed to help. Meanwhile, Amelia watched the press conference live from the library. Tears welled in her eyes as she saw the truth unfold. Leo hadn't betrayed her. He'd risked everything to protect what was right. She grabbed her coat and hurried toward the flower stand, hoping he would be there after the storm he had just unleashed. When Leo finally returned that evening, exhausted but free from the board's grip, Amelia was waiting. I saw everything, she said softly. Leo looked at her, unsure of what she would say next. You told the truth, she whispered. You really were fighting for them. And for me. Leo's shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. I told you I'd prove it. Amelia stepped closer, her voice trembling but certain. I believe you now, completely. But even as they shared that quiet moment, Leo knew the battle wasn't entirely over. The board was crippled but not defeated. More challenges would come. Yet for the first time, he didn't feel alone in the fight. The press conference spread like wildfire. By the next morning, every news outlet was covering the scandal, not against Leo, but against the corrupt board members who had orchestrated the smear campaign. Video clips of Hayward's recorded confessions played on every screen, exposing years of greed and deceit. Public outrage was immediate. Protesters gathered outside Kingston Enterprises, but this time they weren't there to attack Leo. They were demanding the removal of the corrupt directors. Leo watched it unfold from his office. His assistant entered, looking both relieved and cautious. "Sir, the council has launched an investigation into Hayward and the others. The board is falling apart." Leo nodded slowly. "Good. They won't be able to hurt the communities or Amelia anymore." "But what about you?" the assistant asked. "The company will be entirely in your hands now." Leo stared out at the skyline. "Then it's time to rebuild it the way it should have been all along." Meanwhile, Amelia returned to the flower stand. The older woman was there again, smiling warmly. "Leo's not here today," she said, "but he asked me to give you this." She handed Amelia a simple, handwritten note. "Meet me tonight at the park bench. There's something I need to ask you face to face." Amelia felt her heart skip. She spent the rest of the day in quiet anticipation, unsure what Leo had planned, but knowing it mattered. That evening, the park was quiet under the soft glow of streetlights. Amelia sat on the familiar bench, clutching the note in her hand. Moments later, Leo arrived, no longer in his simple flower seller clothes, but in a modest suit. Yet despite the change, he still looked like the same man she had met weeks ago. "You came," he said softly. "Of course," Amelia replied. "I wanted to see you, especially after everything you've been through." Leo sat beside her, his expression thoughtful. "It's finally over. The board can't hurt anyone anymore, and for the first time in years, I feel free. But there's one thing I still don't know." Amelia tilted her head slightly. "What's that?" Leo looked into her eyes, his voice steady but vulnerable. "If there's a place for me in your life, not as a CEO, not as someone with power, but as the man you met at a flower stand." Amelia felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She thought about all the moments they'd shared, the quiet conversations, the small gestures of kindness, the truth he had risked everything to prove. "You were always Leo to me," she said softly. "Not the title, not the company, just you. And yes, there's a place for you." A rare, genuine smile spread across his face. They sat together in silence for a moment, letting the weight of the past weeks melt away. Finally, Leo reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small box. "I was going to wait," he said quietly, "but life has taught me not to waste time on what truly matters." Amelia gasped softly as he opened it. Not a ring, but a delicate silver pendant shaped like a lily. "This isn't a promise of forever," Leo explained. "It's a promise that whatever comes next, I'll always choose what's right. For the people we've helped, and for you." Amelia took the pendant, her fingers trembling slightly. "It's beautiful," she whispered, "and it's more than enough." Later that night, they walked back toward her street, hand in hand. For the first time, there was no mask, no secret between them. But Leo knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter. There would always be challenges, always forces that wanted to undo what they'd built. Yet for the first time in his life, he didn't feel like he was facing it alone. Across the city, Hayward and the remaining corrupt directors were being escorted out of Kingston Enterprises by investigators. The empire of greed they had built for years was finally crumbling. And for Leo and Amelia, the future felt uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. The following weeks were a whirlwind of change. Kingston Enterprises transformed almost overnight. With the corrupt board members removed and under investigation, Leo took full control and began reshaping the company's mission. Community programs were no longer a token gesture. They became the heart of the enterprise. New initiatives were launched: affordable housing projects, education grants, and health centers in neglected neighborhoods. The city, once skeptical, started to believe in the change. Through it all, Amelia stayed quietly by Leo's side. She still worked at the library, still lived her simple life. But now, there was a gentle confidence in her presence. She didn't need the lavish world Leo came from. She simply reminded him every day why he chose to fight. One crisp morning, Leo surprised her at the library. He walked in holding a fresh bouquet of daisies, the same flowers he'd given her the first time they met. "You're supposed to be in meetings," Amelia teased, closing a book she'd been reading to a group of children. "I canceled them," Leo said with a soft smile, "because I realized something important." Amelia tilted her head, curious. "And what's that?" "That even with all the changes at the company, none of it matters if I lose sight of what's real," Leo replied. "And you, Amelia, are the most real thing I've found in a long time." Her heart fluttered. "Leo." He handed her the bouquet. "I don't want you to feel like you're being pulled into my world. I want to build one with you, one that belongs to both of us, no matter how simple or complicated it gets." Amelia felt her eyes sting with emotion. "You already know I don't care about the money or the titles. I just care about the man who gave a stranger flowers for no reason." Leo reached for her hand. "And that's all I'll ever be to you." Meanwhile, the city's media buzzed with new stories. Former employees of the corrupt directors came forward, revealing more scandals. Leo's decision to expose them not only saved the communities, but also sparked reforms in other companies. But Hayward wasn't done yet. Even while under investigation, he made one last move, leaking old photos of Leo's past, trying to paint him as the same cold, power-hungry businessman he had once been. The headlines resurfaced. "Can a man like Leonardo King truly change?" When Amelia saw the articles, she sighed. She found Leo at the flower stand later that day. "They're trying to drag you back into the past," she said softly. Leo's expression was calm. "I expected it. They want to remind everyone of the man I used to be." Amelia looked at him with quiet certainty. "But I know who you are now, and anyone who's seen what you've done will know too." Her unwavering belief steadied him more than any public statement ever could. That evening, Leo took Amelia to the flagship community center that had finally opened. It was filled with families, children laughing in the new play areas, parents receiving help they never dreamed of before. "This," Leo said, watching the joyful chaos, "is what I want the future to look like. Not towers of glass, not hollow profits. This." Amelia smiled, squeezing his hand. "Then keep building it, and I'll be right here." As they walked through the center, people stopped to thank Leo. He responded humbly, knowing it wasn't about him. It was about the lives being changed. For the first time, Leo felt truly at peace. He had faced his past, torn down the walls of greed around him, and found something far more valuable than power. And standing next to Amelia, he knew he wasn't alone anymore. But even in that peace, a quiet thought lingered. The future would still have battles. Yet now, he finally believed they were worth fighting together. The grand opening of the flagship community center marked a new chapter for the city. It wasn't just a building. It was a living symbol of redemption, resilience, and hope. Families poured in to see the bright classrooms, the health clinics, and the safe play areas designed for their children. Volunteers bustled around, offering food and resources. For the first time, it felt like the city was healing. Leo stood at the entrance, welcoming people with a quiet smile. He was no longer the distant CEO hidden behind glass walls. He was present, approachable, human. Amelia walked beside him, watching as he bent down to speak to a young boy holding a small paper flower. The boy grinned, handing it to Leo. "Thank you," Leo said gently, accepting the handmade gift. He glanced at Amelia, his expression soft. "This is what it's all for." Amelia nodded. "You've changed so many lives, Leo. Not just here, everywhere." He looked around, taking in the laughter, the smiles, the grateful eyes of families who no longer feared losing everything. "No," he said quietly. "We changed lives. I couldn't have done this without you." After the event, the mayor gave a short speech, acknowledging not just the community center, but Leo's decision to put people before profit. Reporters swarmed, but this time their questions weren't about scandals or lies. They were about the future and the positive ripple effect Leo had started. As the cameras flashed, Leo reached for Amelia's hand. She squeezed it gently, steadying him. When the crowd finally began to disperse, Amelia and Leo walked through the now quiet halls of the center. "I never imagined my life would lead here," Amelia said softly. "From a small library to this, with you." Leo stopped, turning to face her. "And I never imagined a simple flower stand would lead me to the one person who reminded me what really matters." Amelia smiled faintly. "It started with a single bouquet, and it became everything," Leo finished. Outside, the evening sky glowed with the soft colors of sunset. Children ran through the courtyard, their laughter echoing. For a moment, Leo allowed himself to simply be. Not the CEO, not the man who had once been consumed by ambition, but someone who finally felt whole. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the same silver lily pendant he had once given Amelia. "I have one more thing to ask you," he said, his voice quiet but certain. Amelia tilted her head, surprised. "Stay," Leo whispered. "Not just for this moment, not just for what we've built, but for whatever comes next. I don't know where the road will lead, but I want to walk it with you." Her eyes softened, and for a long, silent moment, she simply looked at him. Then she smiled, her answer clear. "I've already chosen to stay, Leo," she said gently. "From the moment you handed me that first bouquet." They stepped out into the courtyard together, hand in hand. Around them, the community they had fought for was alive, filled with laughter and hope. The battles of the past were not forgotten, but they no longer defined the future. For Leo, the man who had once thought power was everything, kindness had given him something far greater: purpose, love, and a chance to start again. And for Amelia, the woman who thought she was invisible in the city's endless rush, a single act of generosity had led her to the most unexpected journey of her life. As the last rays of sun dipped below the skyline, Leo looked at her and whispered, "It all started with flowers." Amelia smiled, "And it will always remind us where we came from." Together, they walked forward into a future that was no longer built on secrets, but on trust.